guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And today's talk is going to be all about real estate. And with that, I've got a guest, Nick Prefontaine, and he is one of the founders of the Smart Real Estate Coach. We're going to hear about what that is. And I know for a lot of the audience, real estate is kind of one of their bread and butter investments. And so I'm happy to have him on the show to talk about the Smart Real Estate Coach. So, Nick, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me, Christopher. I'm sorry. I'm just, as you can see, I'm excited to be here. So,
Yeah, start off by talking about, how you got started, what you do, and we'll dive right into it.
sure. So, how I got started kind of goes back to I was at ski club with my friends in eighth grade, and I usually brought my helmet to the mountain that we were going to for ski club, and I had forgot it that day. I didn't think anything would happen. I just thought I'd be careful, I'd be safe. So nothing ever happened. So I figured I'd be okay. So we got to the mountain and headed right for the chairlift. And on the ride up, Christopher, we noticed that it was very icy because it had been raining. So people were wiping out everywhere. However, it went right over the train park where all of the jumps were, and I knew as soon as I saw it that I had to go off the biggest jump in the train park. So I got to the top, buckled into my snowboard, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards that jump with all my speed. Going into the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard, and that's the last thing that I remember. So I pieced together the events of that day based on what people have told me and eyewitness accounts, people that were there and doctors and everything like that. So I was told that I landed on my head. I wasn't wearing a helmet. And I also learned later that my goggles were the only protection that my head had. So they wanted to, because of the severity of my injury, bring a helicopter to rush me to the hospital. They couldn't because it was too windy, so they sent in an ambulance. Out of all the paramedics, there was only one in the county who could intubate right on the spot, and I needed that to be able to breathe. He was one of the paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day. Once I got to the hospital, I was resting in a partially induced coma in the intensive care unit, unable to communicate with anyone. And the only people that were allowed in my room, as you can imagine, because of my injury, were my parents. So the doctors came in, and there's three things that I point to that really contributed to why I'm here today. The first is my goggles. The second is the right paramedic showed up to the mountain. And the third, when I was resting in a coma, partially induced coma in the ICU, the doctors, no fault of their own, they were just doing their job, came into my room in front of me to share the not so good news with my parents. And my mom stopped them right away. And she said, no, not in front of him. Because she understood, Christopher, that even though I was in a coma, I was still taking in information. So she made the doctors step outside the room. And once they were outside the room, that's where they shared the news that, look, he's been in a snowboarding accident. And even if he comes out of his coma, he's probably not going to be able to walk, talk, or eat on his own ever again. Because none of this infiltrated me, whether I was conscious or not, I wasn't at that point, it didn't influence me on my recovery. So what that enabled me to do is, once I was aware of my surroundings and the work that was left in front of me, 3 weeks. I was in the coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month. However, it enabled me, once a month passed and I was aware of my surroundings, it just enabled me to get up, keep getting better every day, taking my next step. So unknowingly, I utilized a system, and that's now what we teach at Common Goal. And that's a STEP system. STEP stands for support, trust, energy, and persistence. So support, make sure that you have the support of your family and friends. This is going to have you falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback. Might sound overly simplistic, but this very act of getting everyone on board at the start can save you hours and hours of actual time, worry, and frustration in the future. T is trust. Trust that once you take your first step, your next step is always going to be available to you. E is energy. Maintaining your energy allows your body's natural ability to be able to heal itself. And finally, P is persistence. Once you've taken your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step. So after coming out of the coma, I ran out of the hospital less than 60 days later. And I wasn't done there. I had to continue to go to outpatient rehab for another 6 months, along with being tutored all summer long in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. And looking back on it, and this is where real estate comes into it, looking back on it, it's a little surreal that only 18 months later, I was knocking on the doors of distressed sellers that hadn't paid their mortgage in months, sometimes years. And my job was to book meetings for an investor to meet with them about potentially buying their home. And looking back on this, I can see that it was a part of my recovery, going door to door, helping people out of their unfortunate situation. So with that, Christopher, I'll take a breath and see if you have any questions here.
Yeah. So, kind of the first question is, what is it your company that you do is the Smart Real Estate Coach. How does what does it do? And talk to us about that.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I'm getting into. So I was after graduating, I was door knocking pre-foreclosure doors in high school. Then after graduating high school, I got my real estate license, sold very full time for 6 years. And then after 6 years of being a realtor, my dad helping buyers and sellers, my dad came to me in 2014. And about almost exactly 10 years ago, he said to me that he needed help with marketing all the properties that he was getting under contract and buying them through a couple different ways. On a rent to own or a lease purchase, he was buying some with owner financing, and then he was buying another way, just to keep it simple for your audience. Another way, he was buying subject to someone's existing financing. So however he was buying them, he needed help with marketing all of these properties. And I was reluctant. It's funny, I was reluctant at first. And I was like, I don't know. I have my own thing going on here, being a successful realtor, helping buyers and sellers. I don't need something else. Luckily, he asked me a few times, and I finally came around to the idea that I could do this right alongside being a realtor. So at the end of 2014, I started helping him with the marketing of all the properties that he was buying non-conventionally without signing personally, or getting big investor down payments, or using any of his own money for down payments. I was like, all right, I can do this right alongside being a realtor. And over the course of 13 months, my income shifted where I was making the majority of my income with him as an investor than I was with a realtor. And it didn't make sense for me to keep my real estate license anymore. So I let it go in January of 2016, joined him full time. And that's actually when I started really diving into the business and working on the very particular process that we have to bring rent-to-own buyers through in order to give them the best chance of being able to get to the end of their agreement and get their own loan. So Christopher, you probably know, and your audience probably can relate to this, there's probably only 10 or 20% of the rent-to-own buyers nationally that investors stick in homes that are able to get their own financing. However, our relationship with that is the opposite, is the inverse. We're seeing 80 to 90% of our rent-to-own buyers that we put into our homes, because of our systems, tools, and processes, get to the finish line and get their own loan. So it's really it's a fulfilling feeling, being able to get people to the finish line and have them get their own loan, rather than have them default and then be able to do it again. Would that line our pockets a little bit more, be more efficient for us? Yeah, we tend to make a little bit more money. However, what's important to us is creating a win-win-win transaction. The buyer's winning because they're able to get their own loan at the end of their agreement. The seller who we bought the property from is winning, and we're winning as the investor for helping to put the whole deal together. So we really believe in an altruistic business model.
Yeah, interesting. The other kind of follow-up question is, what do you see, the kind of the market, with the way there's given the economy and the market conditions, interest rates, etc.
Yeah. Is your question, what do you think the market's going to do?
My question is, with your background, what are your thoughts on the real estate market, multifamily, single family, different strategies, that sort of thing?
Sure. So all right, so everyone, that's the $1 million question. Everyone's like, all right, well, what do you think of the market? How's the market? What do you think of the market? Well, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. If I knew that answer, I'd be on a beach somewhere. I wouldn't have to work, wouldn't have to do this. However, we believe and always believe this, that people are always going to need a place to live. And that's kind of why we focus on the single family homes segment of the market. So there are always going to be first time buyers. No matter how good the market is, there are always going to be people who have bad credit, who are going to be credit challenged and not going to be able to get their loan today. So there's only roughly 20% of the market who can walk into a bank and get a loan today. We like to work with that other 80% of the market. And I'm not saying that everyone in that 80% of the market, we can get into a home and qualify. No, of course not. However, there's a large segment of that 80% that make great incomes. They do very well and they have money for the down payment. They're just not able to get a loan today. They're just not able to walk into a bank and get a loan today. And we like to help those individuals to give them a path to home ownership. That's really what we kind of seek out to do and why we've had success for 10 years now, particular niche.
Interesting. Yeah. How can people find out more about you? Because I know you've got you do webinars. There's also interesting thing is the new rules of real estate investing. Talk about that and what's that about?
Sure. So I'll give a few different things. So and I'll actually have to let me see here. They can get your listeners can get a free copy of the new rules of real estate investing. Mm-hmm. And what I'll do, if you will just, all right, I think I have it written down right here, but if they go to I believe the website is wickedsmartbooks.com. And if they go there, I wasn't prepared to give away this thing, but this was a book. The New Rules of Real Estate Investing was a book that my dad, Chris, and my brother-in-law, Zach, and myself all did. And it's all leading experts, every different niche. So I'm a little biased, or we're a little biased. We think our niche is the best. However, not our niche isn't the right fit for everyone. So the New Rules of Real Estate Investing just talks about all these different niches. And by reading it, you're going to find out what's right for you. Yeah, if you go to wickedsmartbooks.com, you should be able to find it there. It's called the New Rules of Real Estate Investing. And if you submit your information, we can get you out a free copy of that. And then if anything, I know we're kind of coming up on it. We're short on time here. If anything resonated with your listeners about how we buy and sell homes creatively without using our credit, without signing personally, or using our money or any investor down payments, you can go to smartrealestatecoach.com And if you scroll down a little bit, you can get registered for the free master's class that's going to teach you all about how we buy and sell homes and enable you at the end of that to take your first step today. And then lastly, I talked about the system that I not only use to make a full recovery, but to run out of the hospital, the STEP system. If you go to nickprefontaine.com, STEP, you can download the entire STEP system for free today. And that's going to allow you to take your first step there, because I know it might resonate with some of your listeners. They want to check that out as well. So that's why I want to throw a few links at you.
Yeah, really interesting. And, for all the audience, be sure to give Nick's socials and check out his website. It's quite as well as the book. And thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad we were able to finally do this, Christopher. I've been looking forward to it.